I'll give it a few minutes as usual for people to roll in. I will admit to those who are already here and to those who are watching the stream playback. Nobody was joining the voice chat, and I was wondering, I guess we're going to have a small audience today. And then I was like, oh, wait, the channel's locked. Nobody can join. Yeah, Araki says I was trying. Now we're getting people. Sog will be here, but just before, like 5 minutes ago, he spilled some water, I guess, over his keyboard. He was like, oh, crap, I spilled water. I'll be right back. And I was like, all right. Now everyone knows. Likely excuse, says Hector. Yeah. Well, before Sog shows up, I am also joined by Doom and Tybe. Yay. If I sound a little low energy, it's because I am. Up here he is. Okay. I did. That is why I use a bottle of water with a cap, and I don't even keep it on my desk. I keep it on the floor. Yeah, so if it spills all over the carpet, and I can just dab it up. Uh, sounds like a personal issue, dude. If you're getting at everyone thinks when you have at everyone suppressed, talk to Discord, not me. Man joins Discord server related to video game, gets pinged about the video game. Mad. Alright, I think we've given it enough time for people to show up. So, hello everybody, and welcome to our 12th Developer Campfire Chat. We've been doing these for a full year now. I guess technically next month would be a full year, because next month's when we started last year, but this is the year's worth of content in terms of Developer Campfire Chats. I hope you've enjoyed them if you've been here the whole time. If you haven't and you're just start now joining us, bad news for later. I don't know. Trex says, woohoo, 1 year anniversary Campfire Chat. Yep. Surprisingly, there's not too many comments that have been submitted. We have 4 questions that have been submitted to the submission box. So there will be plenty of time for us to answer questions from chat if you don't post anything in there. Usually we have a fair bit more. I know that we usually also have some that come in, like as we start. But I'm just saying, there's only 4, so if you want this to go for the usual 2 hours, you better be asking questions. I love people racking on this guy for complaining about the pings. Anyway. So is there any news we want to go over? Sog, Type, Doom, Roadrunner. Yeah. Yeah. that I just remembered. We had the 0.10.8 release recently. So that's just the bug fix release for all of the 0.10.7 stuff. So if you were not playing on the beta branch on Steam or on GOG, that should now be available. I know the GOG one might still be in limbo. Actually, let me check. I messed up the GOG release. Like, bad. So, luckily, GOG has, like, QA people. Whenever a release happens on GOG, they actually, like, make sure the game is working as intended. And they told us, like, hey, you screwed this up bad. And I was like, oops. Let me fix that. I guess Hector would have a bit more insight onto where that's at right now, if he's watching. I know I saw him comment earlier. I tried to log into the GOG dev portal here. What's my password? That's my password. I just guess. Builds. Alright, yep, looks like master is on 0.10.8, but the beta branch is still on 0.10.7 for some reason. So if you're on the beta branch on GOG, switch to the master branch. Looks like it's clear, Hector. I guess at this point, though, technically, any of us could update the beta branch since the release has been approved. But in any case. Hector says, I'm sure it's smart enough to take the newer version even if you're on the beta, though I haven't tested it myself. I wouldn't be so certain on that, but we should make sure that's fixed. In any case, other news. I guess I'll mention this now instead of later. You may have noticed, if you've been around a while, that I haven't been too active lately. Well, you see, life is busy, and your boy got a lot to do. So unfortunately, I've not been able to do as much with Endless Sky as I would have liked recently, and I will also probably be taking a hiatus in the near future. That will probably be a good chunk of time. So I don't know if these chats will continue. If they do, it will be someone else leading them. Most likely Sog, since he's the talkative one. But that is, yeah, that's up to him, I guess, or up to the rest of the devs if they want to continue these. If you guys say you don't want to continue them, Omega will be so happy. He will be setting off fireworks if we no longer ping him once a month. I think it's more of a when than an if. I will say that. I said 6 months, I think. Now, when I say hiatus, I'm not going to like completely disappear for 6 months. I would still like to hop in at least once a week, if not once every other week. But I just wouldn't be as involved in development as I have been historically. But we'll see where that takes us. You know, I've been here for 8 years, man. Boys got to take a break. Azure says successor merge when? Sog was saying yesterday, he was like, this is so great, we should just merge this immediately. You don't even need to review it. Okay, give him a second. All right, I guess we'll jump into Plunder merge when. We'll jump into the questions that have been submitted. Looks like we have a few more now. First one. Oh, you can go ahead. Dairy in chat going crazy. Mm-hmm. Oh, crap. I don't know why. I genuinely don't know why. Um, say something. Okay, that's not.
Words.
Oh, that looks like it's working now.
Um. Really secret
Okay,
things.
thanks for calling that out. The replay is not going to have much fun with that, but you all just heard the super secret information that no one
Yep.
who wasn't here live will know about.
I dropped the relay lore.
Yeah, I'm really sorry you guys missed out on that to anybody watching the replay.
Okay, slight tangent. If you're gonna go on a hiatus, how do I tell people relay lore if the watchers aren't gonna be in the game? Like, you let me do something with the core. Come on.
We can, I don't know, we can. That can be one of those small things I kind of do while
Small.
I'm on my quote unquote hiatus.
A second faction.
I mean, they're intended to be small to begin with.
I don't go off on tangents because it's relevant, but I am interested in seeing models for them too. Because I was actually when I was looking at the successors PR, I was like, okay, these are just more sleek gray, fancy looking starships, and that's becoming pretty popular now. Because you have the Remnant, you have the Kahet, you have the Benrodia. Technically, the cores have that dark, sleek look. They're just bulkier. And then you have these ships now, but there's color on them, so it looks good. So I'm like, I hope like you were saying the Watchers the other day would have the opposite of whatever we chose for the Korg, and the Korg are going to have the Skylark kind of dark style. So I'd love to see the Watchers have some funky shit going on with like colors maybe or shapes or whatever. The clothes as cloak too. Yeah, you don't know how close that is to the truth. But yeah.
Yeah.
Success of the quarter of China's, yeah. And then now talk too, like I'm working on models for them and they're pretty cool. They're more like the Gegno in that they're colorful and they're a little bit more like they have bulges and they're bulky and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah, let's hop into these submitted questions. First
Limerick.
one: should Latrol be added to the game? For anyone who does not know, Latrol is a idea. I think was it my idea years ago now on Steam. It's a person ship that is a star barge loaded with nukes, and it just shoots you on sight.
Are
Araki
you finally
says
gonna
we're dealing with the Time Lord, Super Necro, Ancient Elder.
Are you finally gonna have a personship in the game?
Yeah, that'll be my parting gift as I go on hiatus. So I don't
No.
think we will ever add something that attacks the player on site as a personship like that, because
Yeah.
there's just imagine being in an interceptor, like you just started the game and you get unlucky enough that Latrell shows up on your very first spawn
You
and
know
just
what?
blows you out of the sky.
I wouldn't entirely be against it because I want to knock down person spawn rates a lot because they show up so often now, and I say this every Campfire chat, and even Nova, they're a lot more rare, and some of the person spawns, like one of them, I think is hostile to you, although I don't know if it has weapons. um, but it's just this tiny little like cargo drone that's hostile to you, and the second it spawns, and it goes after you, and it has like a tiny little gun, but it doesn't do anything. So the difference there is that this thing's gonna have nukes. I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah, Ebop asks, can we lock them behind Freeworld's campaign? I don't think we can do that at the moment for person ships. We can't say like, oh, this person
Yeah.
ship only spawns if XYZ is the case. Although it would probably be very easy to make that change.
You can say where it spawns, but not when.
Yeah, yeah. Although Nebula points out, frustration to anyone who plays roleplay permadeath. Yeah, so maybe we don't actually add, even in the case where we could
That's
lock
like
it.
it's good.
Although at that point, actually now, we've had plans, or maybe not plans necessarily, but we've talked about the potential of having an actual Iron Man mode that we add to the game, where like once you're dead, that's it. But
Yeah.
so if that's the case, we would have a condition where we could check, like, oh, if this condition is true, don't spawn this stuff that could wipe you out instantly with no recourse. But if you're doing a normal run but you're role playing permadeath, then we wouldn't be able to do anything with that. So yeah. We can't put two spawn on it, asks Azure. It doesn't have two spawn, but we could put two spawn on it as a allowable node. Yeah, it just says the permadeath player when they hit the 1% chance of Freya just shooting you. I mean, they could just avoid that mission altogether. Has anyone gotten that in the wild yet? Oh yeah, Doom says we technically could make it so you limit the spawn of person ships by using a system attribute, and once the campaign is completed, add a free worlds completed system attribute to every system in the game. Yeah, let's not do that though. Small Bacon Son asks, you guys think you could make it easier to use carriers? The UI is a bit annoying to use right now. What about the UI is annoying? Is it mainly just the deploying and recalling of fighters? I can't hear Sog. Is he talking?
Huh?
Oh,
No.
just quiet. Okay.
Damn, do you want me to talk more? I don't.
You talk so much, then when you stop talking, it's like eerie.
Yeah, that's how the Umbral Reach works. There's no one there to talk. What question are we on, or are we just talking?
Um, Small Bacon asked if we could improve the UI around using carriers, and I'm asking like, well, what? And how
Oh.
would we do that? Like, what are you imagining us adding? Because my what I would imagine is an easier way to determine which fighters you're deploying and recalling, whereas right now it's a fleet-wide deploy and recall command. Unless you use selection groups, which you have to set up yourself.
No, I mean like being able to select carriers only, and making it so fighters and drones don't follow your carrier if you tell the carrier to go to a selected point.
I mean, you
So
could
like,
select the carrier,
the,
tell it to go one way, select the fighters, tell them to go the other way.
can't we make groups? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you don't know this, if you've ever played an RTS game, Now, I've only really ever played Command and Conquer, but in Command and Conquer, you can select a bunch of units, hold Control, and hit one of the number keys. That will bind that selection to that number key. So that in the future, if you hit like 1, and if you had bound a group to 1, it will automatically select everything in group 1. And you can do that for all your number keys, so 1 through 0. So you could have 10 separate groups. And what I will do if I have a bigger fleet that I want to do some more complex maneuvering with, then I will set up groups. Like, for example, one of my most recent playthroughs, I had 3 Sunders, and they each had their own drones. So I would take one Sunder and its drones, put that in group 1, and the other group 2, another group 3. So I had 3 Sunder groups. And I would deploy my fighters, and I would have, or my drones really, I'd have my drones following me because I was also in a Sunder. But I would then tell my groups 1, 2, and 3 to go mine in other locations in the system. So I'd be mining in one corner, they'd be mining in other corners. Whenever they would finish, I would reselect the group, tell them to go mine a different asteroid. So you could do something similar in this case where your carrier is in one group, or your carriers are in one group, and your fighters are in another group. So you tell your carriers, like, hey, go to this corner of the map, stay safe. Then you tell your fighters, bomb rush it into the middle of combat, and pray that you don't die.
Um, Small Bacon, you says you can't get high drones to go to a specific point because they're relying their guns to push them back. If they go to a selected point, they stay where they are. Uh, they have engines. If you tell them to go to a point, they will go there and then stop there. I think what might be happening is if the ships are too close, if you're clicking too close to another ship in your fleet or something like that, it will say that you're clicking on it to follow it, not go to a specific point. Okay, you edited your message. If it goes to the point, they'll stay there where they'll stop and won't go more back if an enemy gets close. Okay, so when you tell them to go to a selected position, you're telling them to stop wherever they go. If you want them to keep flying backwards, you'd have to have them be gathering around your fleet or just not in one spot.
Yeah, when you tell them, when you right click on an area in space, you're telling your selection, your escort selection, hold position at this point. So if you want them to go somewhere but then still chase anything that follows or gets near, you would tell them to stop holding position,
I
which
think what ends up
just hit
happening
H.
here is you're looking for a mechanic where you click a location on the screen and the ship goes there, but it holds formation with you at that specific point, and that kind of sounds a little advanced for what we normally do with fleets. We do have fleet formations in continuous right now where you can change how your fleet floats around your ship, but being able to pick a certain spot on the screen for the ship to go and then at the same time having it still follow your ship with that relative to where it is, that's a little, I think, too much micromanagement. And it probably would be quite a bit to code that, although I couldn't say for sure. Fleet formations. It's in continuous. It's, I believe the default is Shift G, and there's like 6 or 7 different formations. Peter's still working on the kinks though. They do a lot of corrections while trying to stay in formation, and it does look a little wonky. But it's continuous on Steam. If you
Nope.
opt, no, I thought if you opt into the beta branch.
No. Beta
I'm sorry.
is just the latest unstable.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about stable. No, yeah, it's on GitHub.
Yeah, continuous is what we call whatever the latest on GitHub is, so the latest development of anything.
Yeah, the ongoing product.
Yeah, if you use the ES launcher, we have an ES launcher room. Go there, you can learn about the launcher, and then from there you could play continuous if you don't know how to build the game yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Small bacon top your keyboard. I don't think that the numpad numbers work. If we're referring to groupings. It sure says, Dear devs, you call it continuous, yet you update it in discrete pull requests. Curious. Your Rising says, numpad keys have different key codes, not supported. Yeah, they're technically not the same key, even if it looks like it when you're typing. It sends a different code to the game.
What's the end of the Runic campaign? In game or story wise? Because story wise, we don't know yet. presumably something to do with the heron. In game, it's at the end of Sylvita. Is that how you say it? It's when you
Sylvita,
turn.
the
Yeah, it's when,
cognizance line.
yeah, it's when that turns off again. Um, okay. Let's move on to the next question. Since there's not that many questions in here, I'd imagine a lot of it is going to be freeform.
Yeah.
Which
Next
is
question's quick
fine.
though. When
Yeah.
when should jump drive be capitalized? I'm of the opinion that basically never. I think it is. It's probably inconsistent at the moment. But I
Yeah.
mean, we don't ever capitalize hyperdrive, do we? So in the same
Um,
sense, I feel like we shouldn't capitalize jump drive. It's more of like a generic noun.
yeah. It's not the device's name itself. It's a like. How would you put this? It's like the difference between capitalizing computer and the computer brand. I don't know. Like you would just type computer, but you would not say ASUS in low caps or lowercase.
All right. The next question is a trick and will not be answered.
The next one is actually a question. When are the Incipias or Abgi going to be merged? Incipias, like I said earlier, I would like to do it within this update. Abgi, I still think needs a bit of work for the PR to be actually reviewable because right now GitHub crashes every other time you open how much stuff is in that.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, it's how that was happening with my PR when you were reviewing it. There's like almost twice as much in his PR. So it works for you. It's not every time though. That's it. I will say like I will review it. I can't guarantee a merge of this update, but I can guarantee review on it. How about that? Works from computer crashes on your phone and laptop.
Just get a
How do
better
I want to
computer.
split it? I don't know how you would split it to be honest. Like most of it's in the map. I know that. So if I go to the PR itself, it's still a draft by the way. SMH. All these other two PRs are open. Um, yeah, 15,000 lines. Like if I want to load first contact here, it's gonna break. Okay, it didn't break. Good. Oh, but now it's like it's trying to load. What's happening is GitHub's loading all the images like in a row because there's a billion and one. Oh yeah, there it goes. It lagged. I can't scroll anymore. Just collapse the folder SMH. I can't because when I scroll down to do it, GitHub's like, oh look at all these images, and then it freezes. Skill issue. If anything at all, and I know this is going to be a weird thing to do, if you were to split it up, I would say, yeah, page unresponsive. Um, get rid of anything that has sequences, any animations, and put it in a separate PR. Just have the first image. I think that's what's mostly doing it. The map file being big is whatever. Will the Heron ever be obtainable? No. I believe Zichus's plan is you can pilot it some point late in the Remnant story, but you can't obtain, you don't get to keep it. If you try and steal it, bad things happen, and at the end of it, they gain it, they take it back from you. It's the same thing as like the Korth big world ships. It's a very unique vessel to their species, and they wouldn't just give it to some person, even if they did do a few favors for them. You're putting the Heron shouldn't be canon. I mean, we can talk about that once we get to it, assuming when we do get.
I mean, it isn't now.
Yeah, it isn't right now.
So, you got your wish.
Yeah, if it's person ship, it's not canon. Same thing with the battleship. Like, we're not sure that's going to be part of the Republic campaign, but we'll see.
Cosbot asks, do you want full numpad support? I mean, ideally, yes.
Full name.
Off the top of my head, though, I don't know where all we would need to add it.
Will interceptor bays ever be a thing? I don't think so.
No.
Uh, Regarding bays, it's just supposed to be freighters and drones. You can make bays for other classes of ships, but um, generally in vanilla, we want to keep it to only like the carryable fighters. What we there's the something Derpy is looking to do is have fighter bays be able to carry more than one type of carryable, so like either fighter or drone.
Oh yeah, that.
But anything beyond those ships, no. Will carrier bays ever be a thing? That's when you run into things like EV Nova, where it'll spawn a carrier that spawns carriers that spawn, and then your game will crash.
It's carriers all the way down.
Carriers in a new category? Not yet. Don't think the Bastards should be part of the Republic campaign. Well, I think the thought
Same.
was it would appear late on at the alien fights, which, to like, I kind of agree with what you've said, Doom in Wanderer's chat is if it were to appear, I think it should come after the main campaign, like the main three sides, as like an afterthought, instead of them getting an extra ship. Because right now you can't get Navy ships, and that's kind of their special ship, right? Is getting those in the campaign without having to capture them. Same thing were to happen if we did have a Navy campaign in the game, and then obviously the Freeways have the Dreadnought, and you couldn't get the Dreadnought if you did the Navy campaign, but you could still steal one. So something like that. Um, that said, dare I reveal the Syndicate part, or
No.
are we keeping that? All right.
I think if you're talking about the Prospector, I'm pretty sure I've already talked about it before.
Oh, okay. Well, yes. Syndicate would get a new ship and then be a mining ship, a bigger mining ship, a better Sunder,
Yeah.
but not a carrier.
The Navy really does not need a new ship introduced with the Republic campaign. They already have ship superiority.
Yeah, there's no like lore reason why they would suddenly have a big carrier battleship, or sorry, yeah, kind of both. Like that already necessitates it. I guess you could say the Corcester invasion, but at that point, I mean, having a bunch of carriers and cruisers is a pretty big defense slash offense. What do you think about Doom's suggestion, Derpy? Or is that kind of running the
What
same
would that
thing?
be?
Uh, a possible place to put the battleship would be following the Wanderers campaign with the U-High coming in, or like the stress of the U-High coming into human space.
I mean, that was my plan years ago. It wasn't the battleship, but it was a new ship that the Navy makes
Okay.
at that point. But this is years old ideas we're talking about here.
I mean, that's what I'm saying is at that point, I would say that's a good place to put it in as well, but just not in the main campaign, like the three sides. There's new game missions. Yeah, there is. I still have to do a couple tweaks on it because I was not expecting Road to just hit the button like that. We're still in. It's probably still in unstable and continuous, so I can still do a couple tweaks here. You know what's funny? It's not funny. I've actually been working on the next set of missions because I wanted to get ahead of it, but you know it's already merged, so we'll see. That said, let's jump back to questions. What's with all the new species on GitHub?
That's a question for the people opening them.
Yeah, I think what all new species. When was this made? The sixth. Oh, that's just talking about the successors. Then what do you mean all new species? It's one new species and it's pretty well put together. So
All the new species. So we have like 3 open pull quests.
yeah, Incipias, Abgi, now successors. Four? Who's four? Oh yeah, Zaplo.
Oh,
I would imagine that
jeez,
one will
yeah.
be a while before we get to it though. What's the deal there? I almost
Trick
say
says
we
a good
can.
excuse is any to visit GitHub.
Incipients are like 0.5 because Gegno are like 0.789. Incipients can't leave their home system. But they haven't yet. Okay. Next question is what's planned for the next release? We kind of already talked about that. Any major things? The Gegno missions got merged, fleet formations, um, possibly a new species. We'll see. Uh, Anything else I'm missing? Any code, like big code besides fleet formation?
I would like to finalize the fighter base stuff.
Okay.
So drones will be a lot more easy to use, easy to make use of because drones would be able to go inside fighter base.
Some.
Whereas right now you have to have separate drone and fighter base.
Mm-hmm. Some fighter base. Would actually I don't know. Would it be every fighter bay, or like we were talking about, where it'd be like for example, the carrier has big fighter bays, and then I don't know if it
I
would make sense if the hauler ships could carry drones in addition to fighters, or should they?
I mean
Or
I don't
could
see why they wouldn't be able to.
they? Hmm. Now, would we adjust fleets for that though? Like
No.
with the free fleets? Okay.
I mean we're adding the capability mainly for the player to make use of it, but the everything that exists right now would not need to change because it's still going to have fighters in the fighter base and drones in the drone base. It's just that the drones can also go in the fighter base. But if we don't make any fleet make use of that, well, they don't really need to. Universal base question mark? We could, but I think I don't want to go to just straight universal base because a lot of ships are built around, a lot of the carriers are balanced around having specifically drone base, for example. So like if you have a
Mhm.
drone bay, you know it's going to have a weaker ship that's being carried than if it's a fighter bay. So
Mhm.
universal bays would be a flat buff to anything with drone base on it right now.
Mhm.
Because those would become universal, and then a ship that's only carrying drones, or maybe carrying a lot of drones and a few fighters, is suddenly carrying just a bunch of fighters. That makes it even more powerful.
I'll be right back.
All right. So theoretically speaking, though, with the way I have the mechanics set up, we very easily could create universal base. But the main point was just to make it so that fighter base can also hold drones. Although plugins can go crazy with it. All right, Sog said we'll be right back. Roadrunner says, going to lunch. See ya. All right, see ya. Dax says, right now the help pop-ups can be somewhat annoying to go through. As reactivating the help pop-ups, uh, the help pulls up all available help messages for a specific scenario. Would it be possible to add a button somewhere that just pulls up a kind of manual where you can flip through the specific help pages without needing to have them all showing up at once? Potentially. I would definitely like to improve how the help dialogues appear right now because it is a bit cumbersome, as you described, where you hit the help key and everything pops up, whereas you might not actually want everything to pop up. I'm just an idea that just came to me right now. What if we had something that looked like the logbook? So if you go to the player info panel, I by default, and pull up the logbook, you have on the sidebar it says, "Hey, here's the dates," and then here's like different categories of logs. You can click into there and it'll show all the information for that category. What if we had a similar menu, except it was for help dialogues? You could pull up a menu and it would see the titles of all the help dialogues, and then clicking on them would actually pull up the dialogue. That way, if you only want to review a certain topic, well, we would make sure we titled the help dialogues so that the topic that they're for is very clear, and then pulling that up, you'd be able to click on that directly, like, oh, let me see what help I can get for this. And I would want that to replace the current behavior. I think it's F1 by default is what pulls up the help dialogues. I would want F1 to instead pull up this menu. That way, it's again not trying to flood everything at you. And this would also be a way that you could review help dialogues you might not have seen yet somehow. Ideally speaking, somebody who's just started the game and is activating all the help dialogues would see them all very quickly. Like it shouldn't be difficult to get some of the help dialogues, but some of them probably do have information that you would want to know beforehand. Tybe says a Clippy ship shows help messages in the hail panel. Yeah. Will the Class C freighter ever appear? Asks Arcanexus. Yes, the idea is to have that for the Syndicate campaign. ADZ asks a question that was also asked. I guess you just posted it in both places. Will there ever be an iOS app? Maybe an alternative app store to avoid costs? Probably not, because it's a bit more of an undertaking to get stuff on iOS. We have the Android app, but that's
Third party.
yeah, that's a third party thing. That's not technically official, but you can still give a massive thank you to the Weird Nut for that. That's his thing, right? It is. But as far as iOS goes now, unfortunately, Apple just makes it a lot more difficult to get stuff on there. As far as alternative app stores go, would that need to be like a jailbroken alternative app store? Because isn't it still just? I know that there's some legislation in the EU to kind of force Apple to allow alternative app stores on, but to my understanding, that hasn't been finalized yet. So at the moment, there's not even like an actual option to do that. And even if there was, it would probably still be quite the undertaking to recode the game to make it actually work on iOS. I don't know. I know that the Weird Nut with the Android port did have to do some stuff to get it working, but I believe it's largely the same code base. It's just some extra stuff around the edges to make it work UI wise. But with iOS, to my understanding, everything that runs on iOS is Swift, is the language that's used. So we couldn't just use the existing code base. It would have to basically be its own entirely separate code base coded in a separate language, which is not easy. It works in the EU, but you have to set it up with a Mac for alternative app stores. Well, if that's the case, then I would just say, like, we have the Android port, but that's done by someone else. That's not done by like the main team here. So if somebody's interested enough in making an iOS port, then they're free to do that. The licensing for the game is permissive enough that you could just go and do that if you wanted.
Yeah.
But that requires a good amount of expertise to actually get that done. And the question is kind of, at least for us, the question would be how many people would that actually benefit? So, like how many people in the EU are hopping onto their Mac to load an alternative app store onto their iPhone? Given that you're asking the question, I'm sure you're one of them. But in the grand scheme of things, there's probably very few people who are doing that. Because, I mean, if you're saying that you need a Mac to be able to do this, well, how many people have both an iPhone and a Mac? A lot of people I know have iPhones. They don't have Macs. So that just makes the Rising says I do, and Anna raises their hand. Yeah, but that does narrow the number of people even further. Yeah, and Ebop says, and they want to use their iPhone and not their Mac. Yeah, like so you have to have the laptop to even get the game onto your, or even get an alternative app store onto your iPhone to possibly play the game on your iPhone. But they have the laptop, so why not play on the laptop? I mean, I imagine there are cases where someone would probably want to play on their phone and not on their laptop.
Yeah.
But it's like just so edge casey.
I want to answer Azure real quick. Azure, I haven't looked at the successors any more than I've already looked at the ABGI. I've looked at the ABGI more than I've looked at the successors. And there's nothing stopping me from hitting the funny button that says open to review. I mean, if it doesn't matter, just open it to review. You also had some errors still happening, and there's some comments here that aren't resolved, so
Burn.
like I'm scrolling and I'm seeing like at least 4 or 5 comments so far, and that's before loading more hidden items that aren't resolved. So open the PR for review, fix the spell checker, and I will look at the ABGI.
Leaves
Is
pull
it
quest in
yet?
draft
No.
phase. Wonders why there are no reviews. Rag asks, have the Incipias been added yet or nah? Nah.
Things have been added since then. That's fine.
Stop adding things.
I get that they're adding things because they have more time to do so because we haven't gotten to it yet. But like
You're
I'm
just
saying right
shooting yourself
now,
in the foot at that
yeah,
point.
right now, forget the past, forget whatever else I'm looking at. If you want this reviewed, fix the check, open it for review, and I will review it when I have the time to.
It's taking a lot of time for this to get reviewed. Let me add more.
I don't care what happened a month ago. I don't care what happened 2 years ago. Do what needs to be done now.
The high reveal approach to developing. Elia says, seriously though, it'd be kind of nice if there was some sort of digest after the end of the big things discussed in the campfire chats, because I can't think of anything harder to follow than an hour-long voice chat. I get it if it's additional annoying overhead, but it's like these are timed perfectly to act like a podcast for me. It's not like these are timed perfectly to act like a podcast for me. I mean, we have the replays up on Twitch and on YouTube. So even if the timing isn't perfect for you to catch it live, you can still catch the replay after the fact. Arcanexus asks, are the authorships named Wave Rider a reference to Legends of Tomorrow? I'm not sure. I wasn't involved in that. Sog. Were they?
I don't know. That's marksman.
Marksman.
I thought they were
Were they?
references to a different ship. You pinged marksman? Oh, okay.
Right, ask Marksman. Let's go to the next question in the submission box. Would people like to see scripting in the game? If so, what would you like to do with it? My answer? I don't know. At least for me, like if I want to add a new mechanic to the game, I'll just add it to the source code.
The main idea for this, and I know this is being asked for this, is because the whole Lua discussion that came up again, is what MZ said in the past, and kind of something we've been following, is we don't want to add scripts in the game explicitly to use them all over vanilla because one, it's a jump for content creators to use and learn. And yes, people can go and say, but early, like easy beginner scripting is really easy to learn. Regardless if it's easy or hard to learn, it's another thing you have to learn, and that in itself is another jump. So we don't want to like explicitly say, oh, half of vanilla is using scripts, and they might do things better, right? And I'm not saying we'd 100% say no because there's still some discussion to be had, but it's not something we would explicitly add to vanilla to change how vanilla operates. So, but I know some people are saying, I don't know, type. Don't you have some comments on this? I remember you were talking on that PR.
Yes, I did suggest some alternative approaches that could work better in vanilla. So actually, I asked this question. So, like, really, the main thing I'm not clear on is what people want to achieve using these scripts, because that determines how we would design, or whether we would even design said scripting system. And I know a lot of people have been asking for it, but like in terms of actual ideas of what they want to do that wouldn't be doable otherwise, that's my problem with it. I just don't see a clear end goal anywhere.
Yeah, that was my opinion when the idea of adding Lua scripting support to the game was first brought up, my question was, okay, well, what does this actually allow us to do that we couldn't do by just enhancing the engine? And one of the responses was something to the effect of like, oh, people, like, it's easier to learn Lua than it is to learn C++ or something to that effect. But it's like, I mean, maybe, but how much would we actually be gaining for doing, like, to add that support and be able, we would just be doing the same stuff we would probably already have been doing before anyway. So I'm not really, the question then is, I guess, like what you were saying, what would people do with it? What would it allow us to do that we couldn't do right now? Rising says a lot of modders can do very funny things with it. Just look at Mind Test, Knave, etc. Knave has a multiplayer mod that, I guess the implication being it's all scripting support. That's curious. Will Quark Tech ever be obtainable without stealing it? Far future, potentially. Some of it. Ebop asks, have you seen a lot of people join for a little, do a lot, and then leave? Or quit? I feel like I've seen that, and I've only been here a little. I've been here 8 years, and it's not uncommon. But, so if the answer is, have you seen a lot? I mean, I wouldn't describe it as a lot, but I have seen many cases. So, yeah, I mean, people show up, they have a bit of fun, they leave. You do you. Many such cases, yeah. Kaz says, there are so many open issues right now, it's overwhelming. Is there a smaller list of wanted engine changes that are wanted/not being worked on? I would check the milestones. Check anything that's milestone 0.10.x or 1.0.0. That is the stuff that we have said, like, hey, we probably actually do want this. I will say that's not a guarantee. Some of the milestones were added forever ago, and we may have changed our minds on these types of things. But that would be where I would say to start, is to look at the stuff that has been milestoned. We are aware that there are a lot of open issues, and we have had times in the past where we like go through and curate things and close a bunch of stuff, and then just more stuff gets opened. With the amount of free time that we have, like, we just cannot. Like, we already struggle getting through pull requests. We can't also get through all the issues to be like, huh, do we want this or not? You know? So the way we kind of approach it is, if somebody's interested in resolving an issue, preferably you ping the issue first. Try and get people's attention. Be like, hey, is this something we want? If so, I can work on it. Then we can say yes or no, go ahead and work on it. If we say no, we probably close the issue. If we say yes, then go ahead and make the pull request. If you go straight to the pull request, then there's a bit more of a possibility that it just gets closed and that work gets wasted when you could have posted on the issue first and seen if we actually want it. Todd says, look at any game with decent modding support. Wesnoth has Lua, Star Sector is literally Java on both ends, etc. Todd says Java has wildly different capabilities. You can even generate and load bytecode in runtime, modify existing functions, etc. It's not something we can easily reproduce with C++. Yeah. Rising says, but we can have Lua. Yeah. Honestly, I think with scripting support, it might be something similar to how when we added the derived conditions, the auto condition enhancements, where I kind of knew at the time, like, hey, auto conditions are going to be a big thing once we get them. I didn't know the specifics of where they'd be used, though. I now see the specifics and see, like, oh, this is great. Lua support may very easily be the same situation where it's like, okay, you can say, like, hey, we should add Lua support. It would be so great. It would be so great to have scripting support. And I can probably agree with you, like, yeah, I mean, maybe. I just can't see right now what that would be used for. But to Tybe's point, if we don't know how we're going to use it, we probably can't effectively make it. So I do want people to stop just waving their hand and being like, add scripting support, it'd be so great, we could do so much stuff. Okay, be specific. What stuff? And then how would that be able to allow us to do things we couldn't otherwise do with engine code?
So if we just go with like general shared libraries instead of specifically adding Lua support, then we can enable a lot of functionality without doing like a major refactor of the code base. So actually just adding support for loading a shared library is about like 20 lines of code that we can just trivially add to the plugin class. I actually have a working demo for that. And then we could have like a plugin add Lua support later on. I also have a working demo for that somewhere and like automatically generated Lua bindings and stuff like that. That's what I spent like most of the week on.
All right. I mean, if you're already
But
really digging into it, I'd say just keep going. See where it leads us.
yeah, so my current idea is that we could like take the header files, essentially call that endless skylib, as that's the current naming scheme, and then just compile every single CPP file we have into a different shared library, and then allow, so and then we could load those shared libraries either from plugins or from the base game. So that way any individual class effectively could be replaced by plugins. It's not ideal, but it would enable a lot of refactoring. But it's not exactly scripting.
Okay.
But
Yeah, that sounds like a bit
yeah,
more than I was bargaining for. All right. Cosbot, in reference to asking about issues to start with, says, no worries, I get it. Just trying to get back into contributing after like 5 years or whatever. Yeah, I recognize the name, so welcome back. Rising says you have to have a base to build on to give people a base so they can actually think about what would be or what would make it better / more useful. Yeah, that's fair. Rising also says I'm not a fan of using shared libraries. Seems way more complicated for people who are not that deep into the matter. Yeah.
that's true, definitely. So the first time setup with shared libraries is difficult, but we can just have like the updated, we can just update the plugin template repository and like, that can be fixed fairly easily. And once we have shared libraries, we cannot support for Lua using a shared library. So that's why I'm not too worried about the extra complexity there because it isn't necessary for everyone.
All right. Well, the next two questions that were submitted were actually already answered.
Yeah.
And then the next two after that, no comment. They're the questions that get asked every time. Take a wild guess what they are. Rising winds. Navy license? Surprisingly, no. The questions are high reveal when and syndicate campaign when. Syndicate campaign's a bit further off. Actually, I guess to add some news to what we were mentioning earlier at the start, Sog pointed out how we now have a project room for the Wanderer campaign, and there is actually movement going on there. It sounded like we also have stuff for the Navy campaign moving? Or am I crazy?
From what Road has been saying,
All right.
I believe Benny has some work on that. Like a collective of some other people working on it. So maybe we can open a channel for that too.
You guys should be able to open that.
I can't.
You
I can
have
do it
room
like
manager. Can you not
I know,
add
I know.
names?
And if I go here, watch, I'll go create channel. Syndicate development. Not private channel. Actually, I probably should private it for now. And then I'll because we do the access to core members. Next, developer, room manager. And if I hit create channel, missing permissions.
How does it let you get that far?
I don't know. I googled it and it said I'm trying to do something that I need admin powers for, and I was like, I thought I did this before. I made the plugin chat.
Can you make it just an open room? Not try and private it?
I'll try, yeah. Then hit development, create channel. Oop, that's the wrong place.
There it is.
Nope, wrong place. Don't go there. Leave channel. Community projects, create channel, text. Okay, why does it not like?
What were you trying to do?
Where'd it go? Okay, wait, hold on. Where'd it go?
It's in the project rooms category now. Hector says, didn't Ann make a channel before? Yes. Sog
Don't
just
see
doesn't
it.
know what he's doing.
I added it and I don't see it.
I see it. It's
I
under
don't see
Wanderer
it.
development.
I don't see it. What the heck? What is wrong with Discord?
Yo, Discord is tweaking right now. It says no one can view it. Oh, I'm the only one who can see it. How did you do that?
No. Is it the channel permissions?
That's how you broke it.
Or the not the channel permissions, the category permissions? I mean, we had to edit it
I
from
think it
that.
is, yeah. Looks like it was
Alright,
category permissions.
you do it. Make it so only core members can talk, and
Alright,
we'll
there you
figure
go.
out a role later.
Yeah, yeah. I cannot see it, but I made it, says Hector.
Okay, that's weird though, because you look at that, and unlike the other channels, it has a little unlock key, right? Like you can now see this, while the other ones were made and didn't have that to begin with. I think what happened is that we made the other channels outside of the category, and then dragged them in and changed the permissions.
The return of Test Room, says Doom. Test Room never left.
Did we add a Navy campaign one too?
I thought you were doing Navy, actually.
Let's change the name then, or just like
Go ahead and change it.
change the name. Navy. Unfit campaign. No, I'm just doing Navy development.
Anderisk says, I'm having an ADHD fit. I need to go state it before I go crazy here. What, we're not stimulating enough for you, huh?
This channel is for discussion. Prank.
Anderisk says no before I ask a million questions from my sci-fi writer mind.
I'm just gonna show it to
Why
Dev.
not ask them? Because I want to go. Do not egg him on.
Why does it keep throwing my screen back to the top?
Have I not given the population numbers? No thoughts on that right now.
No thoughts.
There are at
on
least
it,
4. Yeah, I think so.
4, maybe 5.
Ryzen is pretty sure it's 42. Yeah. You just have to make the arrow bars very large, says Hector. All right then, though. Anything else we wanted to discuss? We're through the submitted questions. Kind of talked about all the news we wanted to talk about already. Do we want to rapid fire and wrap it up? Distance dependent hidden objects, asks Rising. I do want to look at that.
Okay, so there's a question I wanted to answer because he's been asking me about this. Scrin asks, what would the thoughts be? Well, I'm gonna word this my way. What are the thoughts if we added a faction to the game that had mechas that flew in space? Like what?
Flying mechas in space.
Yeah, so
Um,
something like Gundam, but maybe not direct. Maybe not directly. Uh, Screen, is it okay if I just kind of talk a little bit of what you told me? Screen has an idea to have a small, like, I will say alien faction, but the intention was humans. But I was kind of saying I don't know if we want another splinter faction of humans, um, that uses mechs in space, and they'd be like fighters. They couldn't jump or anything, but they're like fighter size, and yeah. I think I have. Do you have a sprite, like a top-down sprite?
yeah, my question is Doom's question. How would that look with our top-down view angle? I don't know how you would be
This
able to
was
have it come across as being a mech.
something like that. Oh, you got it. Okay. Get to be smaller than that. Half that size. I
Zora
was
had
saying
an
like,
Ava plugin. What?
if you don't, yeah. I was
Make an
telling him, I
Ava
was like,
suit.
if
Yeah,
they
I know
look
what an
right,
Ava means.
if they look right in the engine and they're like somewhat spaceship like, not like, just straight up arms and legs, because like this one has like kind of like the shoulder pad wings or whatnot. I said it could possibly work, but I guess it depends.
I mean, from this just looks like a funky-looking ship. So,
Work better as a crew or boarding weapons or something than as fighters. Well,
yeah.
that's the point, is having it an actual tangible flying object rather than something as an outfit. Which I think is unique because, like, I know some people, there's some other thoughts. Like, some people want to do just floating asteroid species, like rock people. Some people want to
Mecha.
do something like that. Some people want to do mechas. Some people, like, want to do straight up aliens. Like, I have those little alien species, so. Well, that's the thing is, like, for example, that picture that just got posted, Risk, I wouldn't do that. That's just straight up a mecha with arms and a gun. Like, that flying around in space makes no sense. Like, you could say it has thrusters and yeah, in anime and shit, like, they do fly around like that, but it needs to have some sort of semblance of a spaceship in it. Which is why, the thing Scrin posted, it kind of has wings to it, so. I don't know if you want to post the other one. There's another one that looks more like a flying wing with legs or something. But,
Yeah, I think this is
yeah.
really more a question of art direction than it is a question of mechas or no.
Yeah. Yeah. So the bulky one, I'm still a little iffy on because it maybe, I don't know, maybe, but yeah, those are the other two. So and the other bit, which I guess I'll ask for him because he is curious, is the idea is that it's a splinter faction of humanity that got separated, and then there's like a big boss mech that the Archons are having problems with, and I was like, I don't think
No.
something that, yeah. Nothing should be giving the Archons trouble. So then the thought would be, why separate this faction of humans from humanity in the first place? And or how does that happen? And so I was kind of saying, like, if anything, it should probably be not be humans. It should be another alien faction. Like, even you can say it's another humanoid faction, but I don't know if we need yet another splinter off of humanity because we have the remnant, we have the alphas, we technically have the deep. Um, yeah, we have betas even. Yeah, true. No more humans. Yeah.
But
I mean, they could still like have humanoid mechs, but maybe there's like a little dude inside it, like in its brain or something, piloting it. I don't know. And also, you technically have the pug, which are just the green, like references to the green big black-eyed alien. Um, yeah. Did that kind of answer your question, Scrin? Or is there something else you were thinking that I didn't answer, or the rest of us? I will say what I did like about the premise is that it is another like 1 or 2 system thing, and it's like 1 to 3 ships. It's not a whole big giant faction with a bunch of ships and all this, and like 2 factions, like a bunch of factions infighting, which I like to see more of. But at the same time, it's like I was thinking about it. It's like if we add too many like 1 or 2 system alien factions, then the galaxy gets very hectic. I don't know. Will there be more alpha planets at some point? Alpha planets? I don't know. Alpha involvement? Yeah, probably. Extendo. Solar panels, wings, whatever. Yeah, it would definitely, like, I don't think it's impossible to have mechs, but it would just depend on how they look. Any other questions? I think we could go a little longer, but not too long. Unless you have to be somewhere, excuse me.
I mean, I don't, but I wouldn't want to drag this out if we don't need to.
Yeah, it's just more so like we have had less every time, more and more, so it's more like answering.
I mean, have we? I feel like we've
Yes
at
and
least
no.
gotten to the yeah. I think we've had less submitted questions
Less
as time has
submitted, but
gone on, but we've
technically
still gone to the time usually.
half the time they're technically the same questions anyways when they're not submitted. They don't want to ask Doom anything.
That
I
too.
do. Never mind, I forgot.
Smooth.
I was like something balance, something balance. Need lower Haven spawn rates. You mean Course Manus? I agree.
Hector says, "Have you made a decision as to whether campfire chats are continuing?" I was
It's not
saying
a
that
hard decision.
yeah, if
Um,
I will not be hosting them when I go on hiatus. So it's mainly a question of who's picking it up, like who's doing the ping, who's doing the streaming.
I would stream it, but as I said before, I don't know anything about code, so there's going to probably be code questions, and I don't want to do a campfire session with half code questions if I can't answer them.
I mean,
And
did
I
we
can't
ever
just
really get code questions much though? This
yeah, like
isn't.
3 or 4 today.
I mean, scripting, but Ty bashed that.
Well, like in chat too, not submitted.
You just skip over the ones in chat.
Like I don't want to be like, hey Warp, I need you here for this. Hey Time, I need you here to answer these. Okay, Time will probably be there. All right, I mean we can still do it. Like
I mean, yeah,
if
it's not
it's
like I'm the only other one here right now.
yeah, if it's just me, no. If like 2 other devs could show up, I'll still do it. Because technically, if you ask the same questions, I'm going to give you the same answers we gave before. And these are also not necessarily questions. Like we're also kind of talking about what we're working on, or
hmm
technically next update, or what we're reviewing and stuff like that.
Someone submitted a new question. When will the Checkmate campaign be taken seriously? It is a space death fleet game, and the only fun one is shallow. I admittedly don't know what you mean by those last 2 bits there, but as for when, if you mean when we're going to improve Checkmate, there's already been a bit of movement on that. As for when it's finalized,
I think what the
not
last
sure.
2 parts are saying are every battle is space death fleet, like big fleets, and then there's one battle where it's not about giant fleet. I'm assuming it's the alpha battle. I don't know, but I will say there's been a lot of talk about rebalancing the campaign, especially Wanderers, but I have been playing free worlds again lately, and I do think we can tweak fleets. So Actually, this is a good time to ask this question. There's two ideas going around as to how the campaign's difficulty and representation should go. One is overall across the campaign, um, there should be a smaller amount of fleet ships for the player to fight against. But the other thought is it ramps up over time, but your resources you're given from like the free world side also ramps up with you. So I guess like, is there any kind of like thoughts on what would be the better path here? Or Zora, I know Zora never joins the chat, and this is like a Zora question. Zora question, and they aren't even in the chat. I myself typing in the last part of it. Long answer. You can make it convincing. Possible to dynamically no. So dynamically adjusting is going to be more difficult. We don't want to make things based on every little thing the player has in their fleet. It's supposed to be solo based with possibility of a few ships in the player's fleet.
The idea is that it's just difficult enough where if you have the right ship and the right skill, it's not super easy to do, but you should be able to do it for any combat mission. But if you have difficulty with a single ship, either because maybe your loadout isn't the best on one ship, or you're not the best pilot with a single ship, then you can just buy more escorts to decrease the difficulty of the mission. With every new escort you buy, that will necessarily decrease the difficulty of the combat a little bit more. Eventually, you can very easily reach a point where you just trivialize all the combat in the game. But that was a decision that you made to buy a massive fleet to trivialize all the combat. To then say that we should make it so that all of the combat in the game scales to the size of your fleet, well, that actually removes the option to decrease the difficulty of the game by having a bigger fleet. So I think that what you have are two different types of players who are at odds with one another. One set of players is saying, hey, I want more difficulty, while the other set of players is saying, I want the option to lower the difficulty. Dynamic fleets doesn't really resolve that well, it kind of takes it away from one group and gives it to the other. If you want more difficulty in combat, I would suggest just having a smaller fleet. Use weaker ships. Use weird loadouts. We're not going to give you a massive fleet and insane difficulty for most of the game.
Okay, so I remember now. It's either there's the lore perspective of these fleet battles have large fleets to begin with, whatever you consider large to be. Like we could still lower that down. So say a fleet with like a carrier, two cruisers, a bunch of frigates and stuff like that or something. But the other thought was, should these kind of larger fleets, even if they're lore representational in the beginning of the game, should they be based on the lore, or should they be based on a player's gameplay experience? Like this is their early start in the game, so these fleets should be smaller, but then later on they're big. Does that make sense? There's like a difference there. Like in one example, there is massive fleets, but you're given that many like ships to help you. And in another example, because it's so early in the game, the amount of ships in the mission should be lower until you get to later. That's the kind of thought. The letter won't change much. Yeah, so that's what Zora was suggesting today is rather than just have the fleets be whatever size they are and then give the player enough support from another part of the fleet, ship amount in general based on every mission should increase gradually throughout the campaign. So a fleet at the beginning of the game could be a cruiser with two frigates and a gunboat, and a fleet at the later part of the game should be like two carriers, a cruiser, four gunboats, and a frigate. But technically, both still mean it's a big fleet in that moment. So it's more based on the progression than it is the lore. That's kind of what the suggestion is. I was looking like, what do you guys think about that? Not just Derpy, but like everybody. Like the capture of Coniferous, like that happens and there's a Navy fleet there you have to fight. What if that Navy fleet isn't a big fleet as it is right now, but it's a few ships, but that few ships might seem like a big fleet. Way to group ships up, minimize one spot would be sweet. That's kind of the problem, though. I don't think that person's not in here. Grouping ships is the problem because if you're going to attack a Navy fleet and they're all in one massive pile, they'll dogpile whatever the first ship that goes at them is. And meanwhile, the opposite happens too. Like, there's no easy answer because if the opposite happens and the fleets are spread apart, someone could get surrounded. Yes, Road, I made the channel. If you're interested, I would suggest probably waiting until tomorrow because I imagine we can talk about what you've shared with us so far, and then maybe we can, or not maybe, but we can do the same thing we did with Wanderers and get a little outline together. That was a meme for channel testing. Yeah, let me just make a Helix versus Quark development channel real quick. Will it also be public comments like the Wanderer outline was? The main thing with these development rooms is they're core only, and these kind of guidelines that we're going over, we're kind of going over between ourselves first. Make sure
Okay,
you,
it's
like...
live again.
Hey, we're back. Derpy's Wi-Fi had to go take a pet rock for a walk, and then it came back. So
It's
we're
like the
back
third
now.
time this week. It happened while I was working from home, twice.
Oh no!
Yeah,
Did you
Monday and
lose
Wednesday.
Did you lose anything? That was
Fortunately,
unsafe?
no. But
Okay, that's
I
good.
just couldn't do what I needed to do, and I had to like ping someone else on Slack and be like, "Hey, can you do this thing for me? I can't upload this."
We were out of power here for a whole day because of a thunderstorm.
It's not power; it's just the Wi-Fi.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm so saying.
just, just randomly, just stops. Like I speed tested it during one of the times it was happening. My download speed was fine, but for some reason my upload speed crawled to like 0.02 megabits per second or something stupid like that. I was like, "What in the world?"
Mm.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer power not being out and the Wi-Fi just dying because you can still use your computer.
Yeah.
When the power's out, I can't do that because it's not a laptop. I mean, I do
Alright.
have a laptop, but anyway.
Go on.
Um, I'll talk about the less interesting one first. So we were talking about this a while back, and I don't know Jerpy was too, about how Navy gunboats are going ham with scanning. We've
Hmm.
done changes to it so they only scan you once, like in a given instance. Like if you're in a system and you get scanned, they don't scan you again. Um, that said, though, because the Navy gunboat default variant has the scanner, anywhere you go and a Navy fleet shows up, you can get scanned. And that is not very fun for people who want to do pirate gameplay, and especially upcoming pirate campaign stuff, because Navy gunboats are pretty popular, or common, sorry. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to make a variant of the gunboat and I took off the surveillance gear and I put it on the variant. So normal Navy gunboats don't have that, but I want to give it specifically to surveillance fleets, which we can manipulate the spawns of better than just every gunboat in the game. But currently, right now, surveillance fleets only show up during the Free Worlds campaign and only in certain systems in it. So I opened a PR to kind of just sum up this, where I think we should have a Navy surveillance fleet separate from the Free Worlds campaign. And either that or just in general, and then have it implemented into the Free Worlds campaign. And kind of like pick like choke points where it would go in human space, maybe leave some open for some pirate gameplay and stuff like that. And yeah, so I was thinking we should have a Navy surveillance fleet.
I
Let me
agree.
see. Because right now the gunboats are going ham.
I know that the original idea from Lake was to create an entirely separate faction with different looking ships that would
Yeah.
do the scanning. I think that's too overboard. I think we should just
Mhm.
split the fleets so that
Yeah.
there's the normal Navy fleets, then there's the surveillance Navy fleet. And then we can
Mhm.
control the surveillance Navy fleet independently of the normal
Yeah.
Navy fleets.
The other thing that Doom brought up while this was happening was the other part of the Navy surveillance fleet is a cruiser with 5 surveillance drones.
Hmm.
And Doom was saying how those probably shouldn't be showing up in free world systems during the campaign because he thinks it
At
doesn't
what
make sense
times?
that when actually Doom, go ahead. You can
I
explain it
know
better
they're
than I did.
deployed initially. because they're looking
Yeah,
for
he means
evidence.
once they're already. Go ahead, Doom. Sorry.
Yeah, so they should absolutely be there when the Free Worlds has succeeded, but the fighting hasn't yet started. My thought is when they two have actually started fighting, when the campaign has actually started, not just when the event has fired and the Free Worlds have appeared. At that point where they're actually fighting, it doesn't make sense for the Navy to send these actually quite weak and lightly armed fleets on their own unescorted deep into hostile territory, because they're just losing the ships.
I'm pretty sure I have an issue open for this. Have a feeling that's a bug that nobody's fixed, because like if you look at some of the other like events where, or some of the events where the fleets change, like the Navy surveillance fleets do get removed, but there's like a few random systems here and there where the Navy surveillance fleets just are still there, because I think MZ wasn't like meticulously keeping track of which systems had which fleets at which times in
Yeah.
this campaign. So that I agree with you. We should get rid of. We should
So
make it so that all of those fleets get removed from Free World territory.
if you look at the PR, I actually did a really inefficient way of doing this. I have an image in a comment that shows everywhere Navy surveillance fleets are in the first 4 initial deployment events. Here, I'll post it in the chat so people can see it. Um, all these circles are where surveillance fleets are introduced in the Fields campaign,
Mhm.
and where otherwise they're not anywhere in the game at all. And ignore the funny different graphics for this, but these are the systems where the fleets are either removed or added throughout the campaign. Otherwise, anywhere that's not these systems will always have the fleets.
Dude, that's
And
crazy.
yeah, so essentially, Navy surveillance is only in the south. If we make the gunboat not have a surveillance equipment, so that's what I'm saying is the better option would be make a separate fleet itself, and then more deeply tune the fleets in free worlds with the surveillance ships, just to make sure they're not randomly in free world systems.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I guess my other thought is I think that the cruiser variants with the surveillance drones shouldn't come into existence until the free roads happens. Because if you're earlier in the game, it kind of makes sense that it's just a gunboat or two kind of
Yeah.
flying around scanning things. And then once the war picks up, then they're like, okay, now we need cruisers flying around and throwing these little drones everywhere to kind of scout things.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That makes sense.
yeah. So all right, eventually I will get to that. Oh yeah, yeah, here's the issue. Giraffe linked it in a comment in the PR to your issue on March 7th that talks about reassess the use of surveillance personality on fleets. Oh, that's different. That's more
Yeah, I'm
generalized.
thinking of a different issue in terms of
Yeah.
some fleets still spawning deep in Free World territory. Maybe it's not an issue,
Yeah.
but I'm pretty sure I have talked about this before.
Yeah. And Hector with that comment saying it's cheap surveillance drones can just be destroyed. um, it would be very advantageous for military position, but the cruiser itself is a sacrifice. That's kind of like what Doom is saying, where it makes more sense that they would be surveilling their borders and throwing those out to scan their borders, but not just dropping into free world space and then by itself, and then the drones by themselves, and where they can just bam be dead anyways. Yeah. All right. Well, that's one PR, and this other one is actually a lot more important because I know people have been talking about this for a very long time now. I opened a PR to adjust the carriers. I've been talking about this for a while. I've been saying the carriers should not have 8 gun ports. That does not make it a carrier. That makes it a cruiser with more health.
Gasp.
The carrier has, in game, the carrier is essentially a bigger cruiser. It has more health, bigger engines, more guns, fighters in addition to the drones.
Carrier
There's
nerf?
nothing. Yes.
That's wild.
Yes and yes and no. Yes and no. It's just a bigger cruiser right now, and that's not what it should be. So I sat down with Doom for a bit, and we kind of threw out some ideas of how to adjust the carrier to be more of a carrier and less of a battleship, so that the cruisers actually have a role. And what we came across is the carrier has lost 4 of its gun ports, so half of them, and it lost a single turret mount, and in return, it gained 4 fighter bays.
Ooh.
So instead of it has 4 lances and 6 combat drones, now it has 8 lances and 6 combat drones. But in return, it doesn't have 4 particle cannons, and it doesn't have 2 heavy laser turrets. It has 1, but it also still has its anti-missile turrets, the 2 heavy. So this way, the gun mounts could be more focused on like missiles or torpedoes or something, and it's assisting its fighters. Its fighters are the main threat from the carrier, not the carrier flying around with a bunch of guns. And to kind of add on to that, Doom thought, let's give the carrier an extra shield generator so it can repair the fighters faster, and Sidewinder Rex so it can give them ammo. So it's all like focused around the fighters themselves and not the carrier's weapons. And that said, it does nerf the carrier itself, like without the fighters, because it lost a lot of ship-to-ship combat capabilities. But it gains it in the fighters, and I think that's a lot more of an appropriate role for the carrier than it is right now. The only thing would be balancing, because we do have to go through every Freeways mission because some of them use multiple carriers, and that might be a lot of fighters. Didn't I reduce the shields and hull to make it less tanky and more light in support? No, I did not nerf the shield and hull stats. We could, but I think we don't need to, because if it's only got 4 guns and 1 heavy laser turret, that's not going to protect it if its fighters aren't helping it. So it does make sense it's still tanky like it is. The other thing that I was kind of like unsure of was the weapons themselves. So the main upgrades in the Freeloads campaign is going to be those atomic engines, electron beams, and typhoons. The cruisers use typhoons, but the upgraded carrier doesn't use any new weapons. I mean, it uses electron beam turrets, but it doesn't use the new torpedoes or anything. So it losing the 4 particle cannons. Warp suggested that it should just all be the same missile still, so all Sidewinders. Because if we do 2 torpedo, 2 Sidewinder, then 2 of the weapons aren't hitting the target at the same time. I don't entirely agree with that, but I do agree why that makes sense. But yeah, it would still get an electron beam turret as its upgraded weapon, but otherwise, it's mostly about the engines and that, and then the fighters are still its kind of thing. It makes the cruisers still unique in that they do also use typhoons still. But yeah, that's what that's what I did with the carrier, and I just need to do a lot of playtesting in the free worlds to see how that works out. I did also give love to the Aerie because I've been very adamant about the Aerie having 4 fighter bays and not 2, and just this kind of whole like give fight carriers in human space a little bit more love. So the Aerie got 2 more fighter bases, and nothing else has changed with it yet. If it becomes too strong because it has 4 instead of 2, then perhaps we could adjust a couple other things, but otherwise, no. We consider giving it 2 drone bays, but the only reason that was ever really brought up is because no ships in human space had drone bays at the time, and now we have the Sunder, and technically the carrier and cruiser do, and technically the Syndicate campaign ship that's going to come someday is also going to have drone bays, and in general it just makes more sense, especially because the Deep don't have drones, and it kind of is a little odd to make them have drones to give the Aerie 2 drone bays.
And
But it
the
has
fact
4
that we
fighter
also want to make it so the fighter base can hold drones.
Yeah. So Ares finally getting a little love because honestly, uh, but I'm biased. I love the Ares, my favorite ship. But that aside, um, it's very niche ship. In early game combat, it is really good with its 2 fighters. But once you start getting into the mid game combat, it falls off hard compared to like the Osprey or the Firebird, and then especially compared to the larger ships like Leviathan and Falcon. So giving it 2 more fighters like makes its niche a little bit more prominent and it's a little bit stronger. And I feel like it deserves the love. Yeah, so the big PR, carrier adjust and Aerie buff. Oh, Araki's out. Oh, they've been out. Rip. And before anyone asks, we did just kind of peek at other carriers across the board, and nothing really needed to have more fighters. You could say, yeah, carriers should need more fighters, but when you look at the other carriers in the game, their roles aren't specifically that of a carrier. They're kind of more frontline ships. Meanwhile, the carrier in human space doesn't need to be that when the cruiser already does that. So like the Solifuge in high space, that's not really a carrier so much as it is a battle carrier because it has a lot of guns and turrets on it too. And it doesn't really have any balance concerns. It makes sense for what it does. And it does have a decent amount of fighters. I think it's six drones or whatever fighters. You go over to the Ibis and Remnant space. That's technically an Aerie, right? It has 4 fighters right now, or 4 drones. I forget again. But there you go. Aerie's getting 4 fighter bases, so they're both these kind of like light carrier escort ships, and it makes sense. The
I'm
coalition
pretty sure
carriers
the Ibis was
also
designed as like a remnant
it
area
is.
too. So
Oh, it has 4 drones and 2 fighters. Well, there you go. I mean that's more than enough for a ship its size.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a very nice rounded ship. It's not a strict carrier though, so that's what I mean. So we wouldn't buff the fighters. Same thing with Coalition. The Judicator is very much a support ship. It's not a strict carrier. It does have 6 fighters, I think. So we don't need to make that 8 or 12 or whatever. And especially when it comes to Chorus ships, they don't need more fighters because they're not. There's no
Yeah.
specific Chorus fighter. I mean, base Chorus. I'll get to Tom in a second. Chorus ships like are meant to carry like the odd chaser or two, and the only really carrier one would be the I think it's from what I remember, it's the rat ick or something. Sorry, the rat at something or whatever. I don't remember the new names, but it's the one with a bunch of base sticking out of it, right? That has a decent amount of fighters in its own. It has a lot of chasers, so that does not need any more. It still has less than the automata though, because if we go over to the automata, those like asymmetrical ships, I don't remember the specific count. Isn't it like 6 or 7? And then that's more than enough because if you go and check the balance of sister ships, those fighters will shred you. They don't need more fighters, especially as a one-on-one thing. And then the Techfire 109. I mean, that's like my second favorite ship of the game to the area. That thing has the most fighters in the game outside of something like the Corse Mammoth. It has, I think, 16 total carried ships. That does not need to get any more. And yes, you have the Corse Mammoth that has 32 chasers, but that thing's a flying metropolis, so that's fine. That's whatever. It's not a carrier. It's yeah. My point is most of these aren't strictly carriers. They have their own unique roles. And meanwhile, the carrier in human space is the carrier. It should lean more into being a carrier and not battleship but fighters. But it feels like the case to give the Korath everything. Which part? 18 is too few. I think it does make sense that they all have like small amounts of fighter bays across their ships because these are flying homes. It makes sense they have defenses. But as for the bigger world ships that are like kind of like battleships and stuff like that, I do want to be careful with the balance with those. There was actually talk of buffing the fighter pays on the carrier world ship, and I was like, no, it doesn't need more. But yeah, so that's kind of big, just in the carrier. Is there any new questions coming? I kind of closed that. Oh, so I want to talk about the fighters. The Emerald Sword can carry 6 massive fighters. Why can't I carry gunboats in my ship? They're so slow and drag the recoalition route. The Emerald Sword, it's kind of said that the Emerald Sword is larger in all aspects than other ships. Like the fighters are bigger, the ship itself is bigger because they're made to accommodate the bigger Shiragi. Um, but you saying gunboats should fit in it? I don't think those fighters are the size of gunboats. Like scale-wise, image-wise, yes, they look similar, but if we were to actually specifically scale things to be fighter size or whatever, those would not be similar. And it doesn't really make sense to have gunboats as carried ships. The Shiragi fighters still have the amount of weapons any other fighter would. Meanwhile, a gunboat, in its weapon space and everything, having that be a carried ship is a jump from it being a fighter or a drone. Yeah. Fun things. I guess if I really wanted to talk about the last thing I did open another PR to edit the Umbral Reach. I kind of actually no, this is a good time to get thoughts on that. I want to make use of the shrouded mechanic there to make it more eerie. Azure seems cool with it. So, because I think the Tangled Shroud and Agi PR is a lot more unique than just making these systems dark. The bigger thing with the Umbral Reach is I have considered changing the name because people keep saying, "Oh, is Umbral Reach related to the system Umbral in human space?" And normally I was like, "Well, we have the Albatross planet and the Albatross ship. We have the deep area and we have the deep planet." So it didn't really bother me. But I was like, "Is there merit in changing this name slightly?"
No.
No? Okay. Some people seem to like it. I still like the original.
There are coincidences. It's
Yeah.
fine.
So maybe I won't change the name, but I did edit the area. I gave it shroud. I gave it star field density edit, so there's less stars, so it does seem more empty because it's supposed to be like a unnaturally, why is this area dark kind of thing, outside of it being further away from the core. And I also kind of adjusted landables and minables. I took out a bunch because this space is supposed to be devoid of a lot of things. Like it shouldn't have a bunch of planets and it shouldn't have a bunch of rocks flying around for various reasons I may or may not tell you someday. And I also expanded upon the relay mission. They react a little bit more to you exploring the area now. Or sorry, there is a mission when you go to explore it, and there is now a map label. Because people are always like, "What's the Umble Reach?" I was like, "It's that dark area," so I might as well give a label to it. As for the whole area for the Gigno space, which I call Acheron, that one probably would come with something with the Watchers, maybe, because that's what they really would have called it. The Ember Reach and the Umbral Waste. That's the thing with these like spooky name areas is like they sound pretty good like no matter what kind of slight adjustments you make. The strangled trout. All right, Azure, change it. You have to change it now. That's how the Aggie call it. The scary and mysterious one. The Ooga Booga. Umbral Shadow. That's kind of redundant. The Umbral Shadow. The Shady Shadow. The Shadow. The strangled trout. This will affect the trout population, I think. But yeah. So it sounds like you guys are cool with keeping it Umbral Reach. I don't care. I like it as it is too. I was just playing with the idea if it were to change. But yeah, otherwise. As for more really stuff, you have to wait till Mr. Horse over here gets the Watchers in the game. Otherwise, I can't tell you anything. And I still plan on. I want to give the Korg a mission that says that where they like you talk to them like, what the heck is that structure over there? What the heck is that that ship over there? And they straight up deny it. Because I will say here, they know who they are. The ring was meant for them. That's why the ring is complete. But I want them to be like, we won't tell you because that was some spooky tier 3 civilization that yeah, not real. And it also makes sense, right? Because like there's like the really are like kind of spooky like Drac like, so it makes sense that the Korg wouldn't like something like that that's not Drac, or like at the very least be like, don't involve with that. Same way with like how the Korg don't like being in the Ember Waste or something. I think that's the case, or they just don't want to go that way.
Not sure.
Will they really be getting magic Drac gateways? No, but I have been thinking of the coalition. Actually, no, never mind. I was gonna say there's gonna be another ring somewhere, but I'm not sure. What I do want to do eventually is I want there to be more really lore and systems revealed later in the game based on their funky structure that is there that may do something. Like I want to maybe reveal their home system someday. That said, I'm not telling you where it is. Everyone thinks relay space is that southern region. Go ahead and keep thinking that. I have said that the relay have been across the whole region that the Gegner are in, and there are description highlights that say they've been there, or they might have been there. So whatever you think is core relay space, keep thinking that, because it's probably not. Don't change the wiki. If you hear this, don't change the wiki. Don't give people ideas. I like when the wiki says, this neutron star next to the relay ship may have caused the end of the relay, and it's like, you can't be farther from the truth. But good thought though. Keep that there. That just happens to be a star that may or may not have been affected. It did not go boom and the relay died. There's a lot more worse things that happened. And it was not just one star. Yeah. Enough about my stuff. I guess we should probably wrap up. Unless Derpy wants to talk about more Watchers and minority content on the way, huh?
No, I'm good. We're closing in on the usual 2 hours anyway, aided by my untimely disconnection
The Unreal
that allowed
system
you to
is
go off.
yeah.
So,
The Unreal
any final questions? Speed run, last 5 minutes.
Yeah. Final questions, real quick. Ones that have not been asked, please. I don't want to see Navy campaign again. I'm deleting the first message that says Navy campaign.
I'm not a tea drinker, Hector. More trading? Question mark. Probably not, honestly. Pirate
Green?
campaign
Yes.
one.
Pirate content, I can go poke a lake about that again, but it's still kind of pending in an outline. Same thing with what we're doing with Wanderers and Republic. There are ideas, and the PR is open, but it needs a lot of work. But there is movement with it. I just need to like get another kick in the butt. What changes would you implement early development but realize not possible? That is such a broad question. I don't know how to answer that.
Define
Early
early
development of what? Yeah. Realism, no.
We're so far along. Most
Yeah.
Sog wasn't even technically here during early development, man. Like,
Yeah, that was a while ago. I know about it. I wasn't there
that's
for it.
that's a question for MZ.
Yeah.
He's long gone.
Spoiler alert, his emails take quite a while. Not using caps lock. Is this keybind for speed up? I mean, can we split that off? I don't know if we would, but like when the game is a baby or when you join the team, whatever is applicable. That'd be a derpy question. Maybe Warp if he was here. Oh, he is here. Hey Warp, say something. All the devs here have talked except you.
Oh yeah, that's one I remember.
Oh,
Hector says,
he's not even here. He's not paying attention.
Yeah. Hector says, I think MZ wanted to make a Dyson Sphere at one point, but realized it was too difficult to look good in a 2D game. Yeah, the ring worlds were originally supposed to be Dyson Spheres, but like he tried a few things, graphics didn't look good.
I think it's doable. Look at the Coalition Supergiant that I made. The whole net across the whole gas giant. I think you can do it. It would be with the stars, so there'd be some funky lighting, but you'd have to kind of cheat it a bit. But I think it's doable. If anything, the Korg might have one. Who knows?
Just as Becca made one. It's not a full one though.
Yeah,
It's like parts of a Dyson Sphere.
Why is the Twitch ignored? What was said on Twitch?
I mean,
don't
there's
have
not really
Twitch
much
open.
happening over there. I see one person just like saying stuff.
What's
I
that
crave
one-
violence. Fight the remnant campaign. Cannibals ended them. Like, how am I supposed to respond to this? Give the Afredi love. What about the Afredi? I'm guessing that was during the carrier conversation. I mean, I don't know.
If it is, that's kind of the same thing that the regular Chorus is. They're not meant to be carriers. They're kind of ships that might have a fighter or two in them. I thought about giving the middle-sized ship 2 bays, but that was kind of pending like a shuttle or something. But I don't know if we still do it.
Trek says, as a developer, I do not believe for a second there wasn't a thing you wanted to add and then had to go, oh man, this is way, way, way out of reach for us. I mean, there's probably been stuff like that, but the thing is, like, I just move on. It's like, oh, can't do that. Okay, let me find the next thing to do.
Ago.
I don't stew on stuff that I wish I could have done that I can't do. I have a pretty good understanding of what we're capable of adding and what we can extend the engine to do. So with that, usually it's more like I'll have a vague idea of something and think, oh, I wonder if we can do this. I'll give it like a little bit of investigation and find out the answer is no, actually we can't effectively do that. So it's like, all right, next thing. So.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, story map exists.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of said you'd fine with it, after going back and forth for the 10th time. I don't know. You said no, yes, no, yes, no, yes.
No.
Perpetual torment.
Yeah, the pain will continue for as long as the pull quest is open.
No, I imagine you can talk with each other.
Yeah, so Roadrunner says in response to the wanting to do stuff question, I wanted to make a new faction in a few months. Then I realized how difficult it is to actually make a faction properly. And then if I do create a faction, it's going to be a long time before it actually gets ready. That's the closest I can think of for me personally. I mean, yeah, that's
Same.
what I would say as well. It's mainly it's not so much a question of can we or can we not do something. It's more so a question of do we have the time to do the thing that we want to do?
Which
Because I mean,
usually we don't.
realistically, give it enough time, you can add anything to the game. You can make the game 3D with give it enough time. It's just we
It's
don't
such
want to
a
do that.
yeah, stylistically not something we want to do. Wasn't there? I'm trying to think of a PR where like we wanted to do something, but then the code wouldn't let us because of how MZ had it set up. There's been many cases of that.
I mean, in that case, it's just a matter of putting in the work to refactor it. I know one of the things that I talk about refactoring often is the way that missions are offered. It only checks if a mission is offered once. So you can't have the offering of missions trigger the offering of other missions at the exact same time. You have to take off and re-land again. This makes it so that during given some mission structures, you just can't do what you want to do. So we have to like mess with the way the missions offer and complete in order to actually get it to work the way we want it to.
Mm-hmm.
Hector points out Endless Sky is supposed to be a fairly simple game as well, or at least mechanically simple. So I imagine a lot of the things that would be way too complex for us to implement are also probably the things that are too complex for Endless Sky in general. Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying with like I know what the engine is capable of and how we can extend it. And with that in mind, I also only try to do stuff that I think fits the simplicity of the game to begin with.
Yeah. Because what we're trying to do, like, we're not trying to mimic EV in its entirety, but at the same time, the game's inspired by and based around this kind of older school, top-down sci-fi game. It's not trying to be the next Elite, or it's not trying to be the next Starfield or whatever. It's trying to stick old school, and we can add new things that might help that old school, or might be interesting, but if bleh, the roots are still there, right?
Yeah. That's just as the next Starfield, we would have to remove story content.
Unlucky.
Given how Starfield was, it's probably for the best that we didn't try to resemble it. Please don't try to be the next Starfield. Yeah.
No.
It just works. All right. Well, I think that's a
Yeah.
good place to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, everybody's getting busy at the same time. But can we get project channels for the new factions? Potentially? Question mark. I don't know.
If we do that, could it be like a separate thing, like faction development category? Because technically, there's more than 3. But unless we want to keep it to PRs only.
I mean, yeah. I would question the purpose.
Yeah.
We have separate ones for Pirates, Quarg, and Wanderers because those are existing content that
Well,
we
that
kind
is
of
like
need to
core
focus on.
gameplay.
Yeah.
It's not like adding a new faction. It's adding upon a core part of the game, so it's a little different.
For the new factions, any discussion should occur on the pool quest itself. Once it's merged, then we would add a general room for them, similar to how we have with Core, Emberways, Coalition, all that. But if we got the sense that there was a need for a room dedicated to the development of a certain faction, then yes, we could make a room
Well, I
for
don't know
that.
if you were there when I said it, Azure. I said the problem is the images, not the writing. And if whatever you did, like I'm probably gonna look at that. If I can review it as is, I'll just do that. Yeah, I think that's what I'll do. Is within the next major release, like what we're doing right now, I'll go around and review factions. There you go. Big streams
Ooh, go for it.
because Derpy's disappearing. Look, he's gone. Did you hear that? No, he's not gone. You heard factions? He was out.
Yep.
That is not an invitation for all of you to PR your own factions, by the way.
It is.
I'm reviewing the 3 that are open right at this moment. If you open one, I'm not looking at it. I might look at it. Make your own faction? I already did. It's called Gegno.
Way ahead of you.
Technically, too. It's the relay, too.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I have news for you? Yeah.
He doesn't know. Oh, generally. Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, okay. I will add this. Edit them. Plugin first, super helpful because that PR that Derry made for the faction, because it's been around for a while, was very nicely done. I will say.
All right then.
Including ships, yeah. All right, that's it for me.
Yep. So,
And probably,
thank
yep.
you, everybody, for showing up to our 1 year anniversary campfire chat. Again, I guess technically next month would have been the 1 year anniversary, but this is the year's worth. This is our 12th, so we did a full year of campfire chats. Reminder that we typically do these the first Saturday of every month, although I need to check my calendar. I might not be able to do this next month. Yeah, I think I'm just going to cancel next month, and then we'll, as I move into my hiatus form, we'll figure out how these will continue going forward. So I'll cancel the event for this, and we'll ping everybody when we start doing these again.
Yeah, because we'll still be talking about we'll still be meeting up every now and then, kind of touching bases.
And of course, just because we're not doing these, or if we stop doing these, it doesn't mean that we're not open for questions. You can still ask questions whenever to any of us if you see us online, you know.
Yeah.
And we're open to chat.
Just be what's the word?
Courteous.
Yes, courteous of your pings or DMs.
Yeah. All right. Anything else to sign off with? Any of your other guys? Doom, Roadrunner?
Look forward to more stuff in the development channels.
No.
And streams. That's it. Doom, Road. I like how Warp's just gone again. Like he comes in, he comes in the channel every campfire chat. He comes in, someone says something to him, he goes, "Huh?" and then he leaves like 5 minutes later.
He's just here to collect his paycheck.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
All right.
Thanks again, everybody, and
Thanks for
see you whenever
coming.
the next time is.
See ya.